Bigger round of applause. She's doing incredible work during difficult times. In this next session, while we're getting set up, and I'm going to get up for a second, we're going to continue talking about how we can cultivate positive food experiences for young eaters. And I have to say that some of my favorite people are on this panel. The work they are doing is truly inspiring. Give them a round of applause, please. All right, so joining us, we have Linda Novick O'Keefe, the co-founder and CEO of Common Threads. Round of applause. Jessica Gudmundson, the executive director of the National Farm to School Network. Round of applause. Chef Adrian Lipscombe, the founder of the 40 Acres Project. Big round of applause for her. She's local. She's local, y'all. And Ashley Rouse, the executive director of the Edible Schoolyard Project. Big round of applause. I am so excited to see all of these folks. This is a really powerful group of women that I admire, and I'm just so glad to be on stage with, so thank you. Adrian, I got to start with you, as always.
Hi, everybody.
You are deeply, deeply embedded in the food movement, especially here in Austin, but also elsewhere. You've done a lot of culinary diplomacy. But you're also really thinking about food and nutrition issues as a mom. And you shared a story with me last week that I kind of found confusing and disturbing, and I'm wondering if you are open to sharing it with the audience.
Yeah, sure. It still is confusing to me, too. So I have 4 kids, and 3 of them are in elementary. I have 1 in pre-K 4, 1 in first grade, and 1 in second grade. I do not recommend it. But I received an email from each one of their teachers saying the same thing. And it pretty much states that they are no longer allowed to hold back the children from getting unhealthy snacks, which they were doing a little bit when they go to the cafeteria. Snacks range from 75 cents to $3.15. That's my first perplex, is like, how is a snack more than what the school lunch is, right? And that what they were concerned about was that children were now buying the unhealthy snacks and that they were not eating their lunch. And their excuse is that they are under contract and that they still need to be able to get as many calories for their calorie intake. So they were forewarning us to let us know that if you saw an increase in the account, in your child's account, this was probably the reason why. And so for me, this is coming from a pre-K 4. So they're allowing kids to get their unhealthy snacks and eat them first before even attempting to eat their lunch. And so a lot of kids were not eating their lunch.
And before they have the education to know, I mean, they're
Right.
getting it from you at home, but like when you're around kids, it's a very different story.
Yeah, it's very different. So my children were pretty much raised, and they still are raised in gardens. And so, though that this really didn't affect us because they do take their lunch to school, it still was a conversation I needed to have with a 4-year-old, right?
Right.
Like, don't buy the Pop-Tarts. Do not look them in the eye, like it's just, like I have to make this, conversation, and then, the middle kid is like, I'm not doing it, but he's the one that gets the most, right? Like he's the one that will choose something. So, it left me thinking about other parents and their choices,
Right.
and, and parents that are on the free lunch program, but still put money in their children's account, but having the free well that now that they can choose unhealthy snacks. And it also made me question the school district going, why aren't you choosing healthier snacks from
Right.
the vendors, or having conversations with the vendors to provide a healthier snack
Right.
option for kids?
Right. So many problems intrinsic in all of what you just described.
It's a lot. I'm still dealing with it.
Yeah, I know. I'll be interested to hear what happens. Jessica, if I can turn to you. Obviously, schools can be incredibly important places to shape young eaters' relationship with food, but procurement practices also offer opportunities to support the broader food system and local economies, and I'm hoping you can talk about that.
Yeah, happy to talk about farm to school all day long. Farm to school is 3 things. It's sourcing locally grown, nutritious, whole, minimally processed foods to serve in cafeterias to kids, at the same time that we're providing nutrition education, helping kids understand where their food comes from, And then also providing an experience, experiential learning, allowing kids to get their hands in the soil, understand what it means to plant a seed, watch it grow, and nurture it that entire time. It includes things like learning how to cook with food and doing farm tours and all sorts of fun and exciting things. But the reason that we talk about needing to do all these three things, which are all important in and of themselves, is when you do all three is when you actually have significant impact in children's lives. So doing all three of these things together is going to result in better outcomes for kids. They're going to have a positive, strong relationship with food that's going to last them a lifetime. And if we're doing all three of these things, then kids are engaged. They're eating what's coming down the cafeteria line. It's not going in the trash, because that might be the case if the kid doesn't have a chance to develop a relationship and understand that food. So when we're creating this positive space in school, we're also helping our farmers. Farmers absolutely need good, strong, stable markets that they can count on for all their hard work and all of their growing, their raising. It's so important to create opportunities for farmers to build and grow and develop and make sure that we have access to food as a country.
It's so common sense, right? And I wonder, when, it works in the work that you're doing, right? Because you have a supportive community. Why doesn't it work elsewhere? Why don't people understand it?
There are significant, it's the most natural thing on the planet. You would think, oh, here's a farm, here's a school, let's connect the two. But there's so many barriers along the way. And there's a million different things. And people who grow food, people who raise food need to understand child nutrition programs. They're very complicated. They have strict rules and guidelines about what can go on the plate and how much they can reimburse for it. So if the farmer doesn't understand what a school needs to buy, they're not growing the right things. They don't have the right quantities. They're not able to maybe they're growing the right things and they have the right quantities, but they're not able to make a profit. All of these things require a farmer and a school to get together to talk and understand each other.
Yeah.
Then there's that's just one part of it. Maybe the farmer has no way to get their produce to the school. Maybe they don't have access to a refrigerated truck. Maybe the school doesn't have equipment to cut up the sweet potatoes, and they need the farmer to chop them first before they send them along. So there's just so many little things along the way that can prevent these programs from getting off the ground in the first place. I remember there was a farmer in California growing watermelons and, right down the street from a school within half a mile. And for years and years and years wanted to sell his watermelons to that school. And then at some point, he finally was able to make it happen and was literally crying tears of joy.
Yeah, you can overcome these obstacles. Thank you. I'm going to cry during this panel. I'm just warning everyone. Linda, you recently told me that during the pandemic, you saw a lot of donors, and we've heard this today from Lindsay and others, shift away from school gardens. And just a few days ago, USDA's decision to cut $660 million from the local Food for Schools cooperative program will likely result in the same thing. You're not going to see a lot of funding for procurement. You're not going to see a lot of funding for school gardens. What's this going to mean?
I'm sweating. I'm sweating because I'm hot right now, but I'm definitely sweating just potential cuts. Our programs that fund Common Threads and so many organizations like ours sit right next to those programs that were just cut. And to just make this really real for everyone, 60% of all of the dollars for Common Threads are coming from government sources.
Mm-hmm.
We're a SNAP-Ed implementing agency in multiple states. We receive a lot of specialty crop block grants in multiple states, farm-to-school grants. And so, for example, in the state of New York, they're notoriously late in execution of contracts and reimbursement times. Last year, it took them 8.5 months to actually execute a contract and start reambusing us. So that we're a $4 million organization with no reserve. Most small organizations don't have that float. That was like $1 million that we had to float, and it rocked us for the next year. And right now, they're 6 months late on executing our contract. So you take that they're late, and then attorneys making, our attorneys represent USAID, so they're really nervous because, potentially, If our program were to get cut, we wouldn't receive any reimbursement for programs that we have started after January,
sure.
after those executive orders. So a lot of organizations and we were just talking about it, we all as nonprofits have to figure out how we're gonna partner together if we wanna make it. Yeah, I think that's probably the only way so many of us are going to make it. I mean, we're going to start seeing organizations shutter and sunset. We're seeing it already.
Yeah, we should all be sweating over this, and I think that's the thing here. For me, food and agriculture have always been a nonpartisan issue. I don't want this to turn into a partisan fight, and I'm really afraid that we're already in it. And I wonder if there's a way, maybe you can all think about this before I turn to Ashley, how can we convince our lawmakers not to make this partisan? But Ashley, I want to turn to you and see, if you can talk about how you're teaching nutrition in a way that can help connect the dots between eating healthy and a resilient food system. I'm getting emotional, I'm sorry. A resilient food system that nourishes people, animals, the planet, all of us.
Yeah, so can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so the way that we think about teaching kids at the Edible Schoolyard Project is really through providing them with experiential learning and joyful experiences. It's not just about the food, it's not just about gardening or cooking with the food, it's really about the connections and really understanding how you can show up in the world, how you show up in the world, and how to understand your value, the value of the food that you're eating, the value of others, and being in community with each other. And so I think that a lot of times, there's this focus on nutrition or being healthy, and we don't think about that. We think about how do we help kids understand their relationship to each other, their relationship to the land, and how that teaches them essentially how to be. And the important piece of that is how we're all connected and related. And Linda and Jessica and I have spent some time this afternoon talking about all of these cuts. I'm not trying to go off the record here, but it is truly important right now because all of us have a deep passion for this work, and we have really beautiful programs doing amazing things. And so in my mind, what we're going to have to do is be more intentional about our relationships with each other and come together and look at the shared resources that we have so that we can lean on each other. Maybe we become one unit to keep making sure that these programs last. At the end of the day, we're talking about children and we're talking about farmers, and those two groups of people are extremely important. One for the future and one for who feeds us. So
it's so interesting to me because you all take such joy in this work, and you are teaching relationships, you're teaching love, you're teaching community, and now that's at stake. And again, I'm going to go back to the common sense part of this. I don't get it. And I wonder how, Food Tank is a storytelling organization. There are so many storytellers in this audience. What is your advice on how we communicate this in a way that gets across to lawmakers or just normal folks who are like, I don't care about school gardens? Whoever wants to jump in.
I'll jump in and say, come and spend the day in the garden. You will find that it is every child's happy place, not just every child, but every adult. Right now, post-pandemic, one of the things that the educators told us in the school that we partner with is we want kids to reconnect. They have been so isolated and so behind screens, they just want additional time with each other and additional play. And so when we think about the work that we do, we activate the senses, right? We want to provoke awe and wonder and create these places where kids forget about what's going on in life. And if you think about it at the end of the day, that's so interconnected with any science or lesson that we would do with humanities in the kitchen or science lessons in the garden, because we're all a part of this larger ecosystem. And it's important to understand our connection to that.
Thank you. Jessica, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, happy to follow up. I agree with everything Ashley said, and I think we take a deep breath, we remind ourselves that we know how to move this work forward, and we have power connected and with each other. I think one of the most important things is building awareness, making sure people know these things are happening, they impact our daily lives, and they have real life consequences when we do things like take funding out of programs and away from farmers. So I do think there's just a need to share this message publicly. Hey, we need to make sure there is no bad investment in farmers or kids. There is absolutely no bad investment. And it's important that we continue to make this investment because we care about our future. We want there to be a better future. We want to move forward and have the things that we didn't have when we were kids. So let's share this message, let's repeat this message, and then let's come together and talk about solutions. Think about how we're collectively filling in gaps and working with each other, just like Ashley said. National Farm to School Network is a network of nonprofit organizations and individuals all across the U.S. Join us. We will provide you information. We will tell you, hey, now's the time to advocate. Call your legislature. School food is potentially going to be cut. Let's work together. Let's share the message. Let's make sure people know, and let's make sure people repeat it.
Right on. Thank you so much. Adrian, you're one of the most outspoken people I've ever met.
Really?
Yes. And you have an amazing platform because of your social media, because of the work that you do, being a chef, being an architect. How do you communicate this in Austin? What do you want people to know?
I mean, I try to go beyond just Austin. I think I try to make it really relatable to understand. I mean, we were once kids too, and we rather be playing outside than doing homework, right? Like, we rather be outside and doing recess. We rather be acting like we were making food outside and pulling leaves and growing things and messing with bugs and things of this nature. I think a lot of us as adults have lost our curiosity and also the idea of innovation and being able to move something forward. But we also need to remember that there's a legacy beyond us, right? So beyond us as adults, but the next generation of children. And, you know, for me, I already know, you know, soon in some time that my life will be over, but what will I leave? Like, what will that imprint be to the community that I can help move the system forward, especially when it comes within food? And what am I good at, and what can I push forward? And it seems to be I am funny, and I smell like barbecue right now, if y'all saw me outside.
Smells great.
It's the Texas perfume right now. But seriously, for me, it is about the children. It is about what we leave them. Right now, we're doing a huge disservice. A lot of our systems, even our organizations and NGOs, have worked in silos.
Right.
And it is a time for us to come together and really push this forward. And if I can be a voice, a catalyst, a glue, anything to help do that, I will.
I know you will. The 4 women on this panel are going to have the greatest legacy for so long.
Please don't cry.
Long after they are gone. Thank you. Brought me back. But like the legacy of the work that you do is so important. You were teaching so many people, and I just want to leave you all with that and the audience with that. Linda, how do we communicate this to others so that they feel it and understand the absurdity of it and the reality of what happens when you can allow these things to flourish and grow?
Well, first, you know, cooking, meal sharing, there is evidence that it improves emotional well-being and mental health outcomes. There is an evidence base for the work that we do. And just a little proof in the pudding, like we had one of our students in Miami, I know there's some Miami folks here in the room, but actually went through our program from kindergarten, did our in-school program, all the way to 8th grade, our after-school cooking program. And I went to class one day, and I see this older kid in the kitchen, and we, at that time, didn't have a formal high school program. I'm like, who is this guy? And apparently, he just wanted to volunteer and give back in his former elementary school, so was like volunteering in our classes. Yeah. And I started crying. And it just so happens that his best friend also went through the program and now opened up a soup kitchen in Miami. So, like, the program works. We have a new high school program that I told you about that takes up a lot of real estate in my heart. And so we teach medical school students, so we mirrored that curriculum and are teaching a STEM-based program to juniors and seniors. Yeah. And so over 10 weeks, these kids are learning a plant-strong recipes. They're learning the connection between diet and overall health outcomes. Turmeric is an anti-inflammatory. how fiber really improves gut health. They heard from a psychiatrist about how, gut health really is related to mental health. They had a doula come in and talk about reproductive health and diet, which blew them away. And then at the end of the day, we give them paid internships, and they go into their former elementary and middle schools and teach alongside our chef instructors. So it's a real whole child, whole school, whole community approach.
Really
and
is.
we actually did a post-survey with University of California, Davis, and 67% of those kids now want to pursue a career in healthcare.
Nice.
So there's the stories and then about these actual kids that are improving their relationship
Right.
with food, which is so powerful. But legislators want to hear the evidence too. So I think it's a perfect combo of communicating both.
Absolutely. You need that data, you need the evidence, you need these examples. Quick call to action, because I'm trying to do that. People feel a little bit powerless. What do you want them to do? All of you.
I'm just going to put a bee in everyone's bonnet about just, I see a lot of messaging on LinkedIn from the foundation community that they are indeed mobilizing. We need the foundation and philanthropic community now. Like, as I said, there's a lot of, we saw this in COVID, and the food banks are under a lot of stress. Everybody needs funding right now, but it's often programs like ours that are funders quickly pivot towards. So this work, prevention, everyone's talking about food as medicine, which thank God, I would have never thought that would have happened 20 years ago, let alone 10. But right now, can we talk about flipping the food pyramid and talking about children and prevention and reversing a trend of generations of non-cookers? So that would be my suggestion. Thank you.
Ashley.
I would say pick up the phone and call your legislators and talk to them about the cuts that are being made, because it's going to directly impact children and farmers. And every child needs to eat every single day, sometimes 3 meals a day at school, and it's the only meal that they get. So I encourage every single one of you to not make this a partisan issue, to pick up the phone and call and have your voice heard.
And this really matters because those legislators, their staff has to count all those. They use that. It influences them very much. Jessica.
I don't know if I have more than that to add, because those are the two most important things. I can't underscore enough the need for funders to step up in this moment and fund, getting people to food, but fund the work that ultimately, is the systems change work. It's so critical that we have funding that's dedicated towards making sure we're not 20 years from now still funneling money into food banks. We want to get away from that. We want to change and we want to evolve. So that funding is so critical. If you're a funder, how much of your portfolio is dedicated to systems change? Think about increasing it in this moment. Organizations like NFSN desperately need funds to be able to be on Capitol Hill and to be advocating for these things on behalf of all the people all across America who are engaged in this work and benefiting from it. I agree with Ashley. Call your legislators. If you've never called your legislator, we can help you. We have talking points. We can tell you what to expect. And it might be scary the first time, but trust me, it's really easy and so needed and so valuable. If you are a parent and you don't know if there's farm to school or programs like this into your community, go to your school and ask. Do you have a farm to school program? Do you want one? Can I help you? What can I do? So there's just a million ways to think about creating relationships, understanding the system that you are working within and leveraging it, because we all can support each other.
Thank you so much. Adrian, my friend, you get the last word.
Yeah, this is kind of fun. I'm going to echo everything. I never thought I was going to be the one to say call your legislator, but I am. And but also I need to tell you, they work for you, and they're human. So they go home, they close their doors, they leave the office, and they're in the street, and this also impacts them. So call them, email them, see them on the street. If they're at your restaurant or if they're in a space that you recognize them, have a conversation with them. They're human, and they need to know. Also, in action, know your farmers. Know your farmers. Go to the farmers markets. Speak to them. See what their needs are as well. They could be like they are trying to get into school districts. You could be connecting them to your school if you have children in school. Plant a seed. Plant a seed. Plant a garden. Get your kids in the neighborhood to be curious about it. Grow unique heirloom vegetables. Pick up a variety. There's more than one tomato, y'all. There's more than 2 tomatoes, y'all. So there's plenty of opportunity to learn about food and to invoke your own curiosity about food too, because guess what? Everybody has to eat.
What a great way to end it. Give them a round of applause. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Thank you. Most powerful women I know. Thank you. Thank you so much.